which means it's time for us to talk about coping with stress. And today we have two different things of great stress. Um, excuse me. One is that I'm going to update you on something that happened to me. For those of you who don't know, I had a mastectomy 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to be updating you all about ending up in ER last week. But before I do that, I also want to tell you that we've got some news coming up about Jeannie's husband, York, and I'll be doing that after the formal intro. All right, so let me just start by saying welcome to everybody. Today, as I said, we're going to be talking about how to cope, quite honestly, with the stress of surgery. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and our quotes will come from that. And the first one that I have for you is, healing takes courage. Oh boy, do I know that one. And we all have courage, even if we have to dig a little to find it. And DearMamaSal, just so you know, is a group of people who get together 3 times a week. Normally, we've been a little sparse recently because of my illness, but we get together 3 times a week to help each other cope, because coping is a skill, and it's best done with friends. And excuse me, I just want to get comfortable here. Hi, Jody. Good to see you. For those of you who don't know, Jody is our admin. And Jeannie, who's also standing by, is our backup admin for Jody. And big welcome to you both. So just to let you know that life, sends us the most incredible things to cope with without any warning whatsoever. And what we're going to be talking about today is really about how we actually are stronger than we think we are, because we can cope if we have to. And that's the whole thing, if we have to. And so before I get on to my main topic, let's acknowledge some birthdays and some special mentions, because those are really very important to our regular viewers. I want you to wish a obviously very happy Thanksgiving weekend to all of you in the US of A, and wherever you might be, but linked to the US of A. For those of you who know, I live in Canada. So we had our Thanksgiving back in October, but I can assure you, I had every reason to give thanks this weekend as well. And I will talk a little bit more about that. Birthdays coming up. We have Pat's birthday coming on December the 2nd. And I think that Sandy's youngest turns 12, I think, this year on the 3rd. So that's interesting. And Big Brother Jeff, for those of you who know my Big Brother Jeff, he turns older on the 4th. So there we go. So our thoughts and prayers for everybody, for whatever reason you may need them this week. And the ones that I really want to talk about are Jeannie and York. And the reason I say that was Jeannie and York were getting ready for Thanksgiving lunch. And Jeannie, feel free to correct me where I get this wrong. We're getting prepared for their Thanksgiving lunch, and suddenly York had a massive stroke. And everybody ended up in the ER. And the bottom line of this is that York will not recover from this without intervention. And he has, had a living will that said he didn't want intervention. So it's a very difficult time for Jeannie and her family. But I also know from talking to Jeannie over the last couple of days that she is practicing incredible emotional intelligence, and also she also is setting boundaries and reminding the family and friends, about the boundaries on this one. This is very much a respect for what York would have wanted, and it's interesting. Jeannie, I couldn't help but think about you this morning when I got your note, that I thought to myself, boy, if ever you realize how much emotional intelligence you now have, I'm pretty certain that you are noticing it now. While everybody else is freaking out, that you appear to be very clear about what needs to happen, what should not happen, and how it needs to happen. And so I want to just tell you that from all of us, our thoughts and prayers are with you. I know that you already know that, but I just want to make sure. And, we all send you hugs, and just know that when you want to vent, you know where to come, you know who's there for you. And, it's just like there is no wrong thing to say or do. And we might say or do the wrong thing, Jeannie, but it will be out of love, I assure you. When I say is, I don't think we're necessarily going to give you the perfect answers to everything that you want, but know that our intent is to be there for you and be your rock at this very difficult time. I know that it has made you very grateful for the neighbors that you have that are presently helping you with Misty, your dog, making sure she gets fed and walked and everything. And, I must agree with you on this one, Jeannie, that you really know who your friends are when tough times hit you in a hurry. And it is amazing the people who come out to support you when you probably don't always expect it. I had something today that happened to me where I literally had a neighbor that I hardly know who made a point of coming out and finding out how I was doing. She saw me outside, and she made a point of coming over to see how I was doing, and just with so much compassion and love that I really had to say to her, I wonder if I can give you a hug. And she sort of looked pretty shocked because, she knows I've had a mastectomy, so giving a hug could be very painful. But I've learned to hug. What I do, just so that you know, what I do is I hug people with this arm, with this part of my body, and I hold them back with this bit, which is where I had the mastectomy. Does that make sense? So I can really give them a good hug because I'm always keeping their left shoulder, away from where my problem area is. But it's amazing what we can do when we need to. So, Jeannie, just keep us informed, and I'm going to presume, Jeannie, that you will keep telling me if there are any bits of what you tell me that I should not share, and that I can, I presume if you're writing to me that it is because you are okaying me to share this. Yeah. Right. And Jeannie, you're saying it could have happened overnight or in the morning. Are you talking about the stroke here? I just want to make sure I understand you, and I don't want to put words in that don't need to be there. So just clarify that for me if you could, because I obviously whatever it is, I'm going to be verbalizing it, and I don't want to verbalize the wrong thing. Oh, in bed. Yes, he could have had that stroke in bed. Or, yeah, isn't it amazing that he had it when he did, just when you were getting ready for Thanksgiving lunch? I mean, it just really is so sad. And the other thing that's sad in my view is that these things seem to happen on high days and holidays. I think my father passed on Mother's Day and my mother on Valentine's Day. So, it's just like, yeah, those 2 days don't go unnoticed in my life in the same way as they did before. And so I'm sure you understand. All right, Jeannie, if there's anything else you want me to share with the viewers, let me know, and I will do that. But in the meantime, I'm going to carry on, just so that new viewers will know that there's a reason why I had a picture up of the emergency room. For those of you who understand this, I had a mammogram back in August. I was back for very serious remammogramming in September. By October, I was told I needed biopsies and had what they call an open wound biopsy, where they actually open you up and take a small steak out of you. And then 2 weeks ago, I had a full mastectomy. And so August, September, October, November, in this season, that's what happened. So hi that is, and hi to Sandy. So I want to tell you that, it has been the most incredible process. As you can probably understand. If you can believe it, 2 weeks ago, they took out 2 pounds of my flesh, if you think about that. And look at me today. I can move my arms. I can swim if I wanted to, and just about perfectly. I can raise both arms. This one, not quite as much as this one, but nearly as much. And how is that for 2 weeks after a major surgery like that? Hi, Karen. Good to see you. So I am just so grateful. And, in terms of Thanksgiving weekend, so thankful that I have recovered at the rate that I have. And for that, I'm very, very grateful indeed. And so if those of you who don't know, when they do this operation, I just want to show you the picture again for those of you who might not have seen it before. And the reason is because I want to show you why I ended up in OR. So if this is a boob, and now I don't have a boob on this side, let me get this a bit slightly better. This is now a scar that runs all the way from my breastbone to mid underarm, where you'd put the deodorant. That's the end of my scar. So I've got this incredible scar. I would think about 20 stitches worth on this side. And the reason I want to talk about this is what they do when you've got this is they stick 2 drains in, that's tubes that come down, and they're long tubes, and they end up in a bulb like this. And twice a day, you take the bulb out of the tube, off the tube at the bottom here, and you empty the gunk out and then measure it and so forth. And these tubes are linked to things inside your body, right? So one went left and one went right. And they're a bit like soaker tubes. You know what I mean? Soaker hoses. All right. So it's like a long piece of material, almost plasticky material with holes in it. And what it does is it literally, by gravity, pulls any excess liquid out of the wound area and then down into here. And by the way, what was really interesting was the way that they changed color so incredibly over the course of the first 10 days. However, the reason that I ended up in the emergency room is because one of the things they warn you about is that these drains, can clog. And they show you how to unclog them if they get clogged. And basically, you hold it. Obviously, you don't want to pull it out of your body, but you hold it at the top, and then you pull any clogs through it, if you like. I'm trying to think what would be like that in real life. Can anybody think of anything where that would be like that? I'm certain there is something, and maybe somebody will think of it. But basically, you sort of feed it down the tube until it unclogs. And the difficult bit is down here where it goes into the little bulb at the bottom, because that seemed to be where it clogged the second time. So they taught you how to do that, and all of us, Jess knew about it, Doug knew about how to do it, and I knew how to do it. But I want to tell you, like anything else in life, it sounds really simple until you have to do it. And then you realize you didn't listen quite well enough. Do any of you relate to that in life? There's certain things that intellectually you understand, but only when life makes you deal with it do you realize I didn't know enough about this. So anyway, the first major clog I had was probably not until Thursday week ago. Yeah, Karen's saying it sounds scary, not easy. It is scary. I don't mind telling you, it is a bit scary, but it doesn't hurt because basically you're holding the tube against your body here and then pulling the rest of it. You're holding this really tight so it doesn't pull the drain inside your body out. Anyway, so what started to happen was, I think it started to happen on Friday night. We got a serous clog. It was so serious that it took all three of us to clear it. In other words, I tried to clear it, I couldn't. I called to Jess to help me to see if she could clear it. She couldn't. Basically, we had to call on poor Doug, and with his strength, he managed to pull these clogs out of the whole drain system. That was pretty scary. I don't mind telling you. And then the next morning, the other drain clogged. And that was sort of like, okay, I managed to clear it myself because now I saw how Doug did it and he was successful. So I managed to clear the second one myself. By lunchtime, I had a third one. And by Saturday evening, I had both of them clogged and we couldn't clear them. Now, if both of them are clogged and we can't clear them, you understand now we've got gunk that is now building up inside the incision area. So by about 9:30-ish, Jess and I both agreed, because, this was a very collaborative healing process, all of this. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciated that. That all the time, it was like, this is what I think. What do you think? And then, Jess would have her input. And then we'd check in with Doug. What did he think? And between the three of us, we made some pretty intelligent decisions coming from three different places. So by Saturday 9:30-ish, we decided we needed to get to the ER because obviously you didn't want this gunk building up inside my body. And we had a choice. And this is an interesting thing. We could either go to my local big hospital, and it is a big one, or we could go to the next area over, which had a smaller hospital. And we reckon that clearing drains after mastectomies was probably pretty common knowledge to everybody. It didn't require specialist hospital to do it. So we decided that Jess and I would go to the smaller hospital where we thought we probably had less of a wait time. And, and to this day, I'm still not sure whether that was the right decision. But you will hear about that. So it was cold and it was frosty, and we got there about 10 o'clock. And you can imagine that I am busy driving, with lots of padding to protect me from the seatbelt and all sorts of things. And poor Jess is busy trying to avoid potholes. Well, of course, whenever you try to avoid a pothole, that's when you hit them all. But luckily, I had enough healing on board that it wasn't an issue for me at all. But I was very glad to have, that pillowy thing that I have. I don't know what I did with it. But, to protect me, because that really helped when I was in the car. So getting into the ER was interesting. And you all know that means you got to wait a long time. But this particular ER had what I call a 4-stage process. The first thing you did is almost immediately they took you in and they took your blood pressure and your temperature and got your base information, name, why you're there roughly, not in depth, but just roughly while you're there, area of need. And then, check all your medical information and everything else. So that was the very first thing. Interesting, they had 2 different waiting rooms, one for people who had flu symptoms and one for people who didn't. And the interesting thing is the people who had flu symptoms, there was no door or anything to keep the germs in that area. It was just open, but it was just a separate area, which made me laugh a little bit. It was like, do they really think that those germs are not going to spread to the rest of us? Duh. So, then we probably waited not too long, about half an hour, and then we had what I call the second stage, which was now they triaged us. In other words, they were finding out how critical the need was. And obviously, I've had a major operation, and I've got problems after a major operation, and that put my need up, fairly up the list. but not necessarily at the top of the list, as I will explain to you. So after we got triaged, we sat and we waited and waited and waited. And I want to tell you, you all know one of the things Jess said when I came home, as we were driving home, or before that, I said, or maybe the morning of, I said to Jess, what do you know about me after being my nurse for 10 days that you didn't know about me before? And one of the things that made me smile was she said, I didn't know that you had the ability to be funny regardless of what is happening to you. And I thought that was an incredible compliment. And she said, it didn't matter. There were moments when obviously you were terrified, but she said, overall, you were funny the whole way through this thing. And she said, it just made it so easy to look after you. And she said, and funny enough, also talked about my ability not to complain too much and to be able to cope with pain. Mind you, I had good drugs on board, so that helped. However, Jess and I really said that we could have written a soap opera about the waiting room. And I'm amazed that nobody has done that, quite honestly. You get the medical programs, you get the hospital programs, but you don't get one about the waiting room, because have any of you ever unfortunately had to be in a waiting room? You will know that there are so many different personalities in the waiting room, if you care to watch and listen. Now, luckily, I can't hear a lot, which was very helpful for me in this particular case. I can't hear a lot, and that and we were sort of the front row. So Jess was my eyes and ears, unfortunately for her, around the waiting room a great deal. So we found out that we definitely could have written a comedy. I mean, I'm not joking. It was that funny in parts. There was one lady who had a nosebleed. Now, I don't know about you, but I mean, she had a good quality nosebleed, and she had to wait 4 hours to get that attended to. She went just before I did. She went in. And I don't know about you, but when we got ice and nosebleeds as children, we had ice packs on our back, and we had to hold our head up high and do all sorts of things. And she was just not doing that. She had a sort of, I think, what is a long bath bag, but that she had a lot of tissues, and she just, kept. Anyway, I was quite surprised about that they didn't attend to her differently. But so be it. By the way, 1 of 4 people with nosebleeds. That surprised us. We wondered why. Why did so many people have nosebleeds? Or is that normal? Then we had the poor man who was upchucking, talking to the big white telephone, and he was doing that a lot. Now, luckily, I couldn't hear that, but Jess could. And so Jess had to keep going out and getting some fresh air, before she joined the upchucking, I think. But she was telling me all about that. And we learned, because I'm hard of hearing, she learned to text me, even though she was sitting next to me. She was texting me information so she didn't have to say it loudly, so I could hear. And that in itself was actually quite funny if you have that sense of humor. Okay, so thank you. Karen's saying about the nosebleeds, because of the dry air from the heaters on now and the cold, maybe would attribute to nosebleeds. Well, interesting. But wasn't that interesting? In the time that I was there were 4 different people with nosebleeds. So then there was the young boy with, he'd obviously fallen badly and he needed stitches, and he waited a long time as well. So that wasn't considered to be as urgent as some other things that they were dealing with. And I believe before we got there, they had a number of very critical situations, and that was why we ended up waiting as long as we did. In fact, the triage nurse came to talk to me and apologize for that. And I said, hey, I'm fine. It's just like, I'm just here. So if anything happens, I'm in the right place. Then I don't know if you've ever heard of this, a young girl came in with her boyfriend, and she had uncontrollable laughter. Have any of you ever seen that or heard it? I want to tell you, it is scary as all get up. When you first heard her laugh, it's nice to hear laughter in the ER. But she carried on laughing hysterically, and then more, and more, and more. And I want you to imagine what that was like listening to that for hours. They probably took 2 hours to deal with her. And luckily, and I was quite happy that they dealt with her before me, that's for sure. But I'd never seen that before. Now, what Jess was telling me, because she had big ears and she was eavesdropping a lot of stuff, apparently what they said was that she had taken a lot of Ativan, I think it was. I think 4 milligrams or something. And the boyfriend thought maybe this was caused by an overdose of medication. Subsequently, Jess, who's been fascinated with this ever since we came across it, found out that there is actually a thing that's a bit like an epilepsy thing that can cause it as well. We don't know which of the two it was. Unfortunately, we didn't get updates, which we would have liked to have had. And one of the things that Jess and I both said is, it needs to be mandatory that as you walk into ER, you need to fill out a mini form saying basically what's wrong with you and while you're there, because it would save the rest of us having to try and work it out. How many of you understand that point of view? The other peculiar thing was no big container of water. There was a little way down the way a machine that sold water and non-healthy snacks. But you can imagine, I was there for 4 hours. I was pretty dehydrated because I didn't think to take anything with me. So I eventually did get something to drink because I needed it. The other thing that I hadn't thought about, neither had Jess, funny enough, and Jess normally outfunked me on so many things, was that we didn't bring medication with us. And of course, I was on medication every 4 hours, and I needed to get pain meds. Well, not pain meds. By then I was off the serious pain meds, but I needed to get some Tylenol inside me. And so just doing who she was, she just went and spoke to them very seriously and said, hey, she's had a major operation and she's going to need Tylenol in about half an hour. So can you please have it ready for her? And they did. I must say, I'm very grateful for that. And they bought me a nice big thing of iced water. So I not only had the medication, I also had iced water, which was awesome. So then 4 hours later, we get called in, and we were so, I hate to say we were excited about going into the ER, but we were, after waiting that long. Only to find out we were in now another waiting room. Now, I don't know if you can imagine what that felt like. You've waited 4 hours to get seen, and they come and get you, and you're so excited because you think this is it. And then they put you in another waiting room. Can any of you imagine emotionally what that felt like? And funny enough, a waiting room with different people in it that I hadn't seen before. And so, now our note-taking, our eavesdropping required greater skill. So, and we were in there probably half an hour before a male nurse came in and called my name. And I got up to follow him, and Jess came behind me, obviously. And he looked at Jess and said, not you, just the patient. You don't want to do that to Jess, And she looked at him. I wish you'd been there because, you had to sort of be there to really get this. She looked at him and said, sir, I am her eyes, her ears, and her mouth. She is hard of hearing, and you are wearing a mask so she cannot lip read. And therefore, I am here for her benefit, not for yours. And it was the way she said it that was like, and she said, and I might also mention that it'll probably take you half the time to get the information you need if you just carry on talking right now. It was brilliant. It really was. Um, okay, so Jeannie's saying that the medical staff where she was, and by the way, she really said the medical people have been wonderful when she was there. She's saying that the medical staff brought her a large bowl filled with crackers, cookies, fruit, and cold water, saying it was a gift from the people waiting to go to hospice. Ah. That is incredible. And that, I didn't mention that earlier because I just wanted to make sure that I got the okay from Jeannie. But York is now in hospice. Her husband is now in hospice, just so that you know. Yeah, Sandy, who also lives in Canada, says, yep, good old Canadian hospitals, multiple stage waiting rooms. So this nurse now was more in depth about what had happened to the drains, what have we tried, all this. She needed to find out just, the last minute stuff. And then we went back and waited again. Now, this time in the waiting room, we had an incredible young girl and her boyfriend, and she had been rollerblading and I think had either fractured or broken her wrist. I think she'd fractured it, quite honestly. Well, no, maybe not, because it ended up she was going to have to go for an operation, so maybe she did break it. But imagine doing that at, by the time this was like, midnight she would have come in, I would think, about then. And then there were, Jeannie's saying York is not yet in hospice. Okay. Thank you, Jeannie. I appreciate that. I thought he had already gone. So that is, thank you for the update. Still waiting for a bed. Oh, yes, you did mention that to me earlier. Yeah. Apologies for forgetting that. I don't know why. I presumed that he had gone now to hospice. Anyway, so then we also had Mr. and Mrs. Raj. That was their name, I think. And Jess had to do a lot of very big eavesdropping on that one. It turned out she was, and the reason we know this was she was in the cubicle next to me when I actually was getting treated, and Ben Jess was like this, hearing what was going on next door. Bless her heart, she was literally just pregnant. I mean, she was that, I think they said week 5, and she wasn't feeling very well. And it was so cute because I gather the doctor was telling her that was quite normal when you're pregnant. There wasn't anything strange about that. You did end up feeling not well, very well, and so forth. But this was a major catastrophe in their thing. And it was just like you could hear this doctor being really patient and going, and and you could almost hear him, if you could hear somebody roll their eyes, but you could almost hear him rolling his eyes and thinking, wait until the morning sickness hits you, or wait until whatever. If you are this panicked over just being the feeling of being pregnant, then there's a lot more to come, sort of thing. Anyway, they were very good. There was a young boy there with his daddy. The daddy said the boy had fallen on his head, which is why he was there. So it was all fascinating stuff. And nobody asked me, why I was there. Perhaps I should have volunteered that, or maybe Jess did. I don't know. Yeah, they probably were wondering what I was there for, and I don't think I told them. I only just realized that now. I must talk to Jess about that. We'll have to do that better next time. It really was quite something. So then we got called in. Hi, Kimmy. Then we got called in to the actual cubicle areas, and didn't take very long before a doctor came to see me. And he had a look at what was going on and said, yep, you're right. You got 2 clogged drains. And he said, I have good news and bad news. So I said, okay, fine. And he said, the bad news is that I cannot suction them out. In other words, they can't put a mini vacuum cleaner on it and then just suck everything out, so that they can unclog it. So I said, which means, and he said, the good news is the drains are coming out right now. Now, remember this picture. I got the drains here. I got these tubes going in and then into my body, all right? And like 2 bullet holes are there into my body. And then one bit goes all the way along here and the other bit goes all along there. And they're probably about 5 inches long, each of them. How many of you are going, that's not fun? So how many of you can understand when he said, yeah, that's it, they're coming out right now? There's a note, we don't have any option but to take them out. The stress level went way up. And the funny thing was, I was stressed about the wrong thing. I don't know about you. What worried me was when they pulled it out. How painful would that be? I got news for you. What ended up being painful, really painful, one of the most painful things in all of this, was where the tubes went in. I'm going to try and draw that here. So I've got these 2 tubes coming in to my body, all right? These 2 tubes coming in. And what they had was stitches around them to hold them together and in place, all right? If any of you ever watched any Western movies, it's about the bullet hole thing. And you've probably, seen the odd movie where they dug out a bullet from somebody. Well, I want to tell you something. That is what I want you to imagine. Because that's basically what happened. And this wasn't like a momentary thing. This took, Jess reckons it took 1 to 2 minutes to get those 2 tubes loose. And in the meantime, no freezing. They are literally in there, or the nurse was in there with whatever tools she had, trying to get hold of this stitch and get it out. I was levitating, out of pain, and when you sort of go like this, it was that bad. And I was trying very hard not to move this area of my body because I didn't want to mess with what she was doing. But I don't mind telling you, the pain, I mean, you can imagine, right? She's digging in there with tools into my body, and not just quickly up and gone with the stitching. You're looking at somebody who removed 12 of her own stitches down her stomach many years ago, right? I'm not squeamish about stuff like that. But I want to tell you, this wasn't just quick lift the stitch, cut and pull. No, this was dig around, try and find it type stuff. And I actually, when I saw the surgeon this week, I said, why did they do that without any freezing? Yeah, ouch, Jeannie. Yeah, that ouch it was one of the most painful things I went through in all the things I did. That was one of the most painful things I went through, quite honestly. And very sad, very sad. Even the nurse looked at Jess and said, you may want to sit down now. And Jess was really clever. She had her famous clipboard. Oh, I've got that here. She did the whole of this with her clipboard, with all her notes and everything in it. It was just incredible. Yeah, and Jody's saying I would have passed out. Jody, what she did was she held the clipboard so that this eye could not see what the nurse was doing, but with this eye she could keep track of me. But watching me, she really went quite pale, enough that the nurse said, you need to sit down. And I really have to say, she said to me, I watched you go through a lot of stuff, and I didn't ever see you looking to be in that much pain until then. And I said, well, that would be because that would be right. That was one of the most painful things for me. So anyway, they get the stitch out. That's the good news. It's gone. And then they then pull out the whole of this soaker hose. That's the only thing I can describe it as. It's like a long hose like this with little holes in it that's inside your body. And it was white. And the funny thing is, basically, after digging out the bullets, that felt like nothing at all. I got. Kimmy, did you have those drains in when you had your pacemaker, or anybody else who's had drains in? I want to tell you, I was surprised. I thought that was going to be excruciatingly painful, and it wasn't. It really, after the bullet thing, as I call it, it was. It was just like it was done and over, and I went, oh, that's good. Now, the other thing is, you remember I was telling you the last time we talked, I was in this wrap, okay? When they did the surgery, I'm going to pull this down a bit here. They put this around me. Now, I want to show you that this is about 4 inches short of going halfway around my body on both sides, all right? So it is at least 8 inches of stretch. Can you get that idea? So when they did the operation, after they finished, they put this underneath me, right? They opened it up like this, put it underneath me, and then stretched it, put this down my chest bone. Oh, other way around, so. Okay. Right, so I'm lying on top of it now. They put this on my chest bone. They stretch this right over all the incisions and everything, and then onto here. And now what I've got is compression on all that area. Make sense? It's very pretty, it's pink. But I want to tell you that you've got, I'm not going to show you, but I've still got bad swelling under here, definitely in my lymph area where they took out those 3 lymph nodes. I've got pretty severe swelling. I've still got some swelling here, not a lot, but still some. Every now and then it sort of really messes with me, but not really very much. So they took that off to do the drains. And because the drains are gone, it didn't need to go back on. It was like somebody gave me freedom. No more things hanging out of my body, no more corset. It was just an incredible feeling. And we, by the way, they didn't stitch up the bullet holes. They just left them. They put padding over it, and then, an abdominal pad that they have, and then, strips of sticky stuff, and sent me home. And the incredible thing was that we got home, I would think about 2:30 maybe. 11, 12, 1, 2, no. We would have got home about 3:30, 3:30, somewhere in there. And obviously, we both went to bed and, fast asleep. And I got up the next morning late, but then it was Sunday morning, so that was okay, and to get up late. And we all had coffee together. We all had brunch. And I packed up my, all the stuff that I had in the room and the bathroom. I packed all that up by myself. I didn't lift the bags or anything, but I had everything all ready to go. And I was home here by about 2:00 on Sunday. So I've been home a whole week. Very exciting. And I don't think I would have been able to happily come home if those drains were still in and causing problems. Does that make sense to everybody? That was like crucial to my well-being health-wise. So once they were gone, and now it was just up to my body to heal itself, I was really quite happy. No coincidences. Yes, Jody. I want to tell you, I will be forever in um, Jess and Doug's kindness on this one. You know, Jess gave up a week of her life. She took vacation to look after me, if you can believe it. And Doug basically did the same as well. And so I was just, and they looked after me morning, noon, and night. I mean, it was just incredible what they did. How about this one? This is a quote that said, "I am so happy the surgery was a success. It's now time to relax and religiously follow the doctor's orders for a rapid recovery." I want to tell you that when I left the hospital, I did ask the surgeon, can I use Billy the bike? You know, I got that mini bike. And she said, go right ahead. And she said, how many, how long do you spend on it normally? I said, I do about, 6,000 steps a day on it. And she said, really, that's really good at your age. Well done. She said, go at it. And if necessarily, if you, and overdo it. Don't worry about overdoing it. If you want to overdo it rather than underdo it, it will help your recovery. So all that week that I was nearly a week and a half, 10 days that I was at Doug and Jess's, I was pedaling every day a minimum of 6,000 pedals a day, 6,000 steps a day. And I think that is why I recovered so quickly, quite honestly. By the time I got to see the surgeon on Wednesday, she looked at me and she said, I'm not surprised to see you looking so well. And I said, why? She said, there was always something about you. Everybody remarked on it. She said, I remarked on it. My staff remarked on it. The post-op people remarked on it. The other people, everybody was laughing about you. And I said, oh, nice to know that I caused a smile here and there. And by the way, I made special thank you cards for them all the different sections that had looked after me, where I put a picture, that picture of the three of us, me in my hospital gown and Jess and Doug, because I thought they would remember the faces, not necessarily the name. So I put that picture in there and just to thank them for their kindnesses to us. One of the things that I said to Jess all along is just, one of the things I know in life, there are rules for people. And then there are other rules for people they like. And I'm certain a lot of you have found that if people like you, the rules are inclined to change slightly. And so one of the things that really blew me away was when we went to go and deliver the thank you cards, one of the places that we went to take a card was into the post-operative thing. And, I'm pretty sure we weren't meant to be in there. But, the staff said, go in there, so I'll take it to them. And I said, okay, I will. And, we knew which buttons to press because we'd been in there before. And it was so cute because the person I met there, wasn't there the day that I was being treated. But, you just suddenly saw this other nurse start to laugh. And she said, hang on a second. I discharged it. And I went, so you did, Laura. And I said, so this card is for you and the crew. And you could tell by the way she was laughing. She just was happy to see me looking so well. And I just said to her, I got tears in my eyes even talking about it, but they were so good to me, as I think some of you know. So I was able to come home a week ago, and the first thing I did was make coffee. When the coffee I had at Dougie's was far better than the coffee I make, I must add, unfortunately. And then, so I got home about, I don't normally drink coffee that late in the day, but I did. And then I fell asleep. Now I haven't got to worry about anybody else but me. How many of you understand that was like a waiting to exhale moment, whew. And so I slept quite, about 4 hours, and then I got up and made something to eat. Oh, my neighbor, Betty Ann, had left some food on my doorstep for me to eat. So kind of her. Beef barley soup. Really nice it was. And it was just like, And then I'd have something to eat, and then I'd sleep again. Because now I'm not on anybody else's schedule but my own. Makes sense. And then that was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I went to see the surgeon. And as I said, she walked in, and her literally as she's walking towards me, she said, "I have good news." And that's really what you want to hear, right? And the good news is that I did not have any cancer in my lymph nodes, which means that what they took out will have, cleared it. And now I will have to go for follow-up, possibly, and maybe even take the pills to stop a reoccurrence. But basically, no, touch wood, no chemo, no radiation, none of that stuff. I am GO for go. And I want to tell you, I was really touched with the surgeon. It's not often that you get a top surgeon, and by the way, I found out that she was a top surgeon who has a good bedside manner. Just by virtue, those two don't go hand in hand. You're either very competent, you have a mindset that is a competent, very competent surgeon, and then you have the people person that's not normally this same mindset. But she was, do you know what tactile is? When how many of you touch people when you talk to them? That's called being tactile. And she she was talking to me, and she kept touching me, and laughing, and it was just, you could tell she was obviously as happy as I was that I was clear. And yeah, I cried. I'm crying now thinking about it. And I think the words "waiting to exhale" are really true, because you sort of go, wow. Whew. And the question is, I know somebody said to me, why did they need to do the mastectomy, and why did they need to take the 3 lymph nodes if you're clear? And I said, the only way that we know I am clear was because they did that. Do you understand that? They could not be certain of it until they did what they did, where they could check the rest of the boob, where they could check had one stray cell or two made it to my lymph nodes. Does that make sense? And the answer, and they took 3 because when they're doing it, they're not sure. If it got to the first, did it get to the second? If it got to the second, did it get to the third? And so now I have to be really careful with my right side, not to have injections in it unless necessary. Try not to get scratches and things. In other words, in the summer, I need to be more careful about not getting scratched by rose bushes and everything else. Why? Because I'm missing 3 major lymph nodes on my right side, and lymph nodes suck out the toxins and bad stuff in your body. So the fact that I'm missing them on this side means I need to be more careful of this side. So what have I done this week? I've had so many incredible steps forward. First of all, Doug and Jess came to see me and brought me a new television for my bedroom. I had a state-of-the-art television in my bedroom. No streaming services in there. Not ever. Oh, I'm pleased to hear that. Jeannie's saying in the midst of all her difficulties, all right, she had a regular mammogram and was normal. Great to hear. I applaud. You do understand, for those of you who might not know this, if I hadn't had my mammogram, I would be living with cancer right now and not know it. So, I'm very, very happy about that. Anyway, can you believe it? Doug and Jess walked in with a new television for my bedroom. And now the joke is, for some reason, I've got all the streaming services, but I can't get the regular television in there. I'm still working. I think it's to do with the modem. I'm still working on that. But I've got a multi-million amount of free new television channels that I've never seen before on my other television. I'll have to check that. But I've got like 150 different channels that are new to me that I've never seen before. But it also has CNN on it, so I'm busy. I can get that at least in my bedroom, which is the only thing I really do watch when I'm in that room. Other than this, it's great to be able to go to bed and watch a movie now. So I'm very spoiled, and that was Jess's present to me. Like she hadn't done enough. Think about that. She gave up a week of her life to look after me morning, noon, and night, and then bought me a television set. Go figure. I've had neighbors come visit me. All right, so every day I got little steps forward, just so you know. For example, when I saw the surgeon on Wednesday, I could, do this. I was really happy with it. But now I'm in regular clothes because the surgeon said to me, off you go, no limitations. Be careful what you lift. In other words, don't go lifting really heavy stuff. But, but she said no limitations. I said, really? So I found out that I could get my arms up. I'd healed enough to do that, which means I could get into clothes again. How many of you know how exciting that was? Regular clothes. I could get into those again. Today, I drove my car for the first time. Now, that's a bit strange, because you're missing part of your body. But, I got to do it. And then, how many of you are going, oh, wasn't that sore? Because it comes across that side, right? Coming over this shoulder and down across here. When I left the hospital, they gave me a special doodad to put on my seatbelt to protect me. Really kind. So every day I've been able to do something new. The most incredible thing I've been able to do, in my view, is I did 80,000 steps last week, from Sunday through to yesterday. 80,000. So I was basically doing about 5 miles a day. And I'm post-op. And you're probably wondering why. And the answer is because I can. And because I sincerely believe in my gut that the more I get my body to work, the more I'm putting, my body to work, the faster it's going to heal. I also bought a really fun program for my Wii, W-I-I. I've got this Wii console, and I bought a new program that is just a fun program where you walk to make money, if you like, and then you get to spend the money building a town. So it's like a walking program with benefits. Fascinating. And it's so easy. I can do an hour it amazes me. I can do an hour walking because it is so interactive all the time. You're not just getting bored, just walking. You go, yeah, I think I'll buy that tree, or I think I'll, it's just like really interesting. And the other thing makes it really interesting is it starts off with about 3 songs on the playlist. Now you get pretty tired of those 3 songs, although they're very good. And if you like a beat, it's so easy to walk to a beat. So you learn to collect the little, they have little discs as you go around that you can see them, and they're parts of a song. So I'm busy picking up parts of a song as I go around so I can add new songs to that playlist. I haven't got... I'm basically been at it for a week, I think, and nearly a week anyway. And I have basically opened up, I think, 98% of the area. And I've put a lot of trees in and street lights in. A couple of suspension bridges went in to get over rivers. But I'm getting pretty close to doing fun things like getting cars. And then after I get any minute now, I'm going to get a building. This is going to be very exciting. And I will keep you informed. But it kept me entertained enough that I get up in the morning and I want to do it. What is the name? Walk It Out. Walk It Out is the name of the game. And, it's I picked up a secondhand version of it. Jody has picked up a secondhand version of it as well for hers, because she's noticed how much fun it was. And by the way, I did do the test for those of you who might be watching this that are not able to stand or walk. I actually did do it and say, does it work if I'm sitting? And the answer is yes. So the main thing is that you need the Wii handheld and a nunchuck thing, all right? And you have one in each hand and you walk. All right, so just so that you can do that, Jody. And, I literally sat here doing this, just hitting the couch as I was walking. And by the way, Jody and I proved that, a year ago, that if you do that, you're still pumping your body, you're still pumping blood around your body. Although you don't think you're doing anything, it's amazing that your heart rate goes up and you know that you're actually using it. So Jody's saying, thank you for testing it out. So Jody, that the first day I used it, I went, oh, this is fun. Got to tell Jody and Lauren about this. And then as soon as I think of either you or Lauren, and particularly Lauren, because she's wheelchair bound, is it possible to do? And what I did is while I was walking, I just didn't walk. I just moved like this to see, did it still keep tracking? And it does. And then a couple of days ago, I actually sat down on the couch and did about half an hour sitting down. So yes, it does. But the thing that I want to talk about is that that I did think about the fact that I want to get healthier. Does it have a guy in an orange shirt? On the front picture? I think it does. Kimmy. I think it does, now that you mention it. It's not right next to me here, but it is over there, and I think that's what I'm seeing. Yes, it does. Oh, are you already looking for it? So, by the way, Kimmy, the instructions are not good. So if you do get it, then let me know and I will help you understand how to play it, because it'll save you a lot of frustration and a lot of time, and you'll get to enjoy it more quickly. I was doing it wrong for the first 3 or 4 days, but you know me, I eventually went, wait a minute. And then I worked out that there's a better way of doing it. Yes, that would be awesome. If Kimmy, if you get it, let Jody know. Jody will forward the information I've sent her. There was another very important bit of information that I didn't share with you, Jody. So remind me. I can't remember what it is offhand, but I will be doing some walking tonight, and it'll trigger what I didn't tell you that I meant to tell you, if you know what I mean. So basically, I hope you can see I am doing really well. I know that I actually ended up putting on weight because I lost 2 pounds of flesh, but I put on 3 pounds of swelling. So again, the reason I'm doing all the work that I'm doing is to try and get rid of that extra liquid in my body. I'm eating normally. I'm sleeping beautifully. I'm mobile. I was in Confetti Corner. And, that doesn't hurt me sitting on the ball chair. I can do that perfectly. So with the exception of every now and then I get, ooh, I could feel that, or the fact that it still is pretty sore and swollen under my arms. Basically, I don't know how to say this. All of that discomfort is a small price to pay for being cancer-free. It's just like, hey, just over 2 weeks ago, major surgery, and I'm up and driving and doing all those things. So I really have a lot to be very, very thankful for. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask on the feed. And if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to ask me questions that you have. If I feel that I shouldn't answer that publicly, I might get you to write to me privately so I can answer it for you. Thanks, Hawkeye. Yeah, it was. I want to tell you something. Not not a fun experience. Obviously, it's a major surgery. All right, so not a fun experience, but quite honestly, it could. I expected it to be worse than it was. Well, it's there were only a couple of moments where I was not a happy camper. And I was very careful for the first 48 hours. But after, just every day gets better. Every day I feel more normal. Every day I can do more. I had groceries delivered yesterday and I picked up the grocery bags. Normally I would carry 3 or 4 at a time. I just carried 2 and I could. So that's normal. I can put things back now. I had especially brought down anything that was on the higher shelves that I might need in the first couple of weeks. I brought them down and put them at counter level. I'm starting to put all those things back in their rightful place. Jody's saying the peace of mind is priceless, knowing you're all clear. Yes, I think for for Jess, for Doug, for anybody who knows me, including you, Jody, but also for me, it was just literally, that's what I have to say. It literally was a moment to exhale. That I just went, whew. I had visitors, neighbors came to visit me day before yesterday, and they all looked at me and said, "Wait a minute, didn't you just have major surgery?" And I said, "Yep." And they said, "Look at you." I said, "If you must, yep." But they couldn't believe how I looked, how I sounded, how I was doing things. So Karen saying, "I'm in college now and haven't had time to keep up with catching a live or time to watch the replay. What led to this? When did this start? I'm so happy to see you doing good." Okay, Karen, in August, I went for a mammogram. When I had the mammogram, they said there was something that they didn't like the look of and they'd like to do a second one, a heavier squeeze. So in September, that was I think the 12th of September, I went in for the second mammogram. When I went in for the second mammogram, they saw something again, which apparently they saw in the first one, but now they got a better picture of it. And I'm going to see if I can find you that picture because it tells the story. Just bear with me a second here, Karen. Apparently I've taken a lot of pictures since then. Yeah, because it's back in September, isn't it, so? Must be getting close. Here we go. Okay, so Karen, do you see? Hang on a second, let me get that light slightly a different way. I want you to be able to see this. Hang on. Do you see this line here? Karen? What they said is they believed what they were looking at was something called DCIS, ductal carcinoma cancer in situ. Okay? And what they thought was that it might just be the cells lining up and that they had not yet become invasive cells. In other words, they were still contained within the duct. And so what they did is that day I went in for what I thought was going to be a needle biopsy, Karen, they actually stopped me before they gave me the needle biopsy and said, "We have a surgeon standing by." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" And they said, "We have the top surgeon standing by to take what they call an open wound biopsy." In other words, they open you up, Karen, and take out half a steak. And then they test that to see what they've got. And when they did that, the results showed, Karen, that some of the invasive cells had escaped the duct. Yeah, Karen's saying, "Wow, so scary." Yeah, you imagine you're just going in for a simple needle biopsy, and the next thing is they're operating on you. Yeah, that was pretty scary. But then what was more scary was that they said they wanted to, no, they gave me two choices. One was I could go back for a second open wound where they would take a lot more. And probably a couple of lymph nodes. Or they could do the full mastectomy on that side and the lymph nodes. And you could tell, Karen, from the way she was describing this to me, the surgeon was describing this to me, you could tell by her body language and by her voice tone that if it were her daughter, she'd go for the full biopsy. I think it was scary for not only me, but everybody who knew me. I'd have to say that. There were an awful lot of people. Apparently, I haven't got much light in here. There were an awful lot of people, that were stunned. Then the next thing was that I was going to have it in January. She said it wouldn't matter as far as she was concerned. But then when I went to see her to okay the operation, I had to go and see her to sign documents. She said to me, "We've just had a date become available on November the 10th. And there was something about the way she said it. And I'm a great believer that there are no coincidences. And she said, "Would you like it? I'm holding it for you. I will hold it. I know you need to think about that because it's coming up very fast." But she said, "I will hold it for the next 4 days for you. 3 days, I think." And quite honestly, I went down and thought about it. And before I left the hospital, I had them tell her, "I'll take the date." By the way, have any of you noticed I'm not wearing my ring? You can probably see the indentation on my finger here, right? They had to cut my ring off me under anesthetic because my finger was already so swollen. And hang on, I'll see if I can show you this. Can you see how they cut it? Now, my finger was round, obviously, but they had to get bolt cutters in there. And it was, I'm going to show you, literally, this is, hang on a second. Can you see how, even with it broken like that, I cannot get it over that swollen part. So you can imagine there was no way it was coming off and I said, "Get me under anesthetic and then cut it." I didn't want them to try and cut it when I was out. I also needed to have my bangle that was on my wrist. I've had that on my wrist since I was 14. And I cut that one off, or I had a friend of mine cut it off. But you can probably see I've got an indentation on my wrist as well where that was. Yeah, Karen's saying, "I'm so glad that the date became available." You see, I don't believe in coincidences, Karen. the outcome might have been slightly different. So yeah, I'm pretty happy too. So the main thing I want you to know is, you remember all that work we did on emotional intelligence last year? Boy, did that help me. There were a couple of moments when I was terrified. I don't mind telling you that at all. But overall, I'd have to say that I've laughed a lot. I want to tell you the most surprising thing to all of us, to Doug, Jess, and myself, that 10 days I spent with them, we laughed a lot. I was getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to have coffee with Jess. When do I ever get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, people? Because it was fun to get up and have coffee with Jess. And then at night, we had great fun because there were 3 adults in the house, all with completely different dietary type things. What we did is we took it in turns to decide what we were going to have to eat that night, which made it really fun. It was just like, and I kept saying poutine, but they weren't going to give it to me. I still haven't had it, but I will. But it was really amazing. And then on Saturday night, Doug had already booked to take me for a full steak dinner at the local keg. And we had to cancel that, obviously, because we were having trouble with the drains, but that was it. Yeah, that's true. Karen's saying Coffee with Jess sounds like a great name for a show or podcast. I'll let her know that you thought that, and she'll love that. But it was just fun. And then, in the evenings, very funny, we all started watching a series together, The Watcher. And the funny thing is that the first night, we're all, Doug's got these great couches, where 2 adults can lie down and watch, you know what I mean? They got leg extensions on them. And I was curled up in a little place on the end, which suited me just fine. They did offer me to have the more spacious thing, but hey, I didn't need it. So the funny thing was, the first night, Doug's in the middle and the 2 women are either side of him. And, we both started watching this program, and within 15, 20 minutes, we're both snoring away and Doug's watching the program. So, of course, the next day he had to explain it all to us. And then we said, oh, we got to watch the second one tonight. And Doug said, what's the point? However, the second one, I managed to watch most of it. And Jess, again, was asleep within 20 minutes, if that. And then, we then explained it all to her as well. And so then, we kept going until, and I've said to her, what are we going to do now? It's just like, I got used to having this little moment where the 3 of us watched something together. That's like family time. And I haven't had that in years. It's just like, wow. It was just fun. And we laughed so much. And Jess said that she didn't expect to be laughing in those 10 days, right? She expected to have crisis after crisis and me crying in pain and, all sorts of things. But it wasn't like that at all. Kimmy's saying poutine is a heart stopper. Yeah, but, I can think of lots of things that probably are. But how often do I have poutine? Maybe 4 times a year. And I really enjoy it each time. So one of the things I have learned about, by the way, my blood sugar is still under control. My, my blood pressure is fine. Everything's just working beautifully. So I'm really, really good on that. Any other questions? Just before I think for me, the exciting thing is to have basically everything, working the way it should, and that I'm able to drive again. All right. So Jody is saying, Kimmy, that once in a while, isn't a problem, and that I eat pretty healthily. Yeah, the reason I know I eat pretty healthily is because of my blood sugar. All right, that I've managed to 6 years of keeping my blood sugar under control without medication. That means, by the way, I have carbs, and that was the other thing. Every night, apparently Jess and Dougie don't normally have dessert, but every night I wanted dessert because that's what I do. And so they got into the habit of, every night we've had a little bit of carrot cake, with icing on top, or we'd have, what else did we have? I don't know. They had fun finding nearly healthy type desserts, which was good. Or we'd have yogurt with bananas and all sorts of stuff. Peach cobbler, yes. When I was coming over, this was really important, by the way. When I was going to go there, Doug insisted that I bring everything with me that would make my life normal. I thought that was really thoughtful. He said, I don't care if you load up the car. I want you to bring the sort of snacks you would normally eat. I want or let us buy them. They want you to buy them. And I said, hey, I've got a pantry full of these things. And so I literally took, everything with me that I could. And then they also bought stuff. But one of the things that Jess had said is, what can I make for you? And I remember that I went to dinner once and Jess made peach cobbler. And it was awesome. She made it twice, by the way, Jody, while I was there. Twice. I had peach cobbler twice in 10 days. So that was really nice. But, they got into the habit of having dessert every night. So that was good. And, dessert doesn't have to be totally unhealthy. And I think that's where people get mixed up with it. People think that dessert is all sugar. Well, it isn't necessarily, right? Yes. And Jody's saying a few extra carbs helps the healing. You know what it does, though? It makes you feel you're alive, because you're allowed to eat it, if you know. But we had lots of fruit. We had great portion control. Doug and Jess are very much into portion control as well. So there was no problem. Every night, because they knew they were all going to go to bed at 9, but I wasn't going to go to sleep at 9. Every night, they filled me up a little snack pack. It was like a little sandwich container, literally the one that you'd put one sandwich in, and it would have crackers and some grapes and some prunes and some cheese. All the things that I like. And so every night I had my little snack pack that I took to bed with me. They had the fridge loaded up with my, the Coke that I like, the Coke Zero. It was just like they couldn't have done more if they had, They thought of just about everything. Getting the bread to the right height so that I wouldn't have to reach up or go too far down to get into bed. They thought this thing through so carefully. There was a television in that room that hadn't been there when I went to see the house when Doug showed me the house. It didn't have a television in that room. It did when I got there. Am I at home? I've been at home a week, Kimmy. I got home last week, Sunday. I didn't do a broadcast because, I'd been in the ER for 5 hours, and then I'd come home. So I knew that wasn't good for me to do a broadcast. Yeah, I keep saying that as well, Jody, that there are no words to thank Doug and Jess for what they did. It's mind-blowing to me what they did. But, Dougie kept looking at me and saying, it's family, Sal. Said, look at all the years that you stood right there next to me whenever I needed you. Oh, my background is different. That's because I don't often broadcast from sitting on my couch. I'm normally standing in the kitchen. So yeah, I can understand that would seem strange. All right, everybody. So no, ah, I got a twinge then. All right. Anyway, so know that I'm fine. Um, and well on the road to recovery. I would say well, touching wood, the worst is over and the best is yet to come if I'm lucky. And as I said, I've been told that I will probably be asked to go to the cancer clinic about an hour away for a follow-up. Or not. They might have caught it early enough that they don't think it's necessary, but I may need to go there, and in which case they will have a team advise me on what they would like me to do next. And at worst, they will apparently ask me to take some medication to limit any, thing else. That's all I can say. I don't know. One step at a time. At the moment, as far as I'm concerned, I've been there, done that. I will be a cancer patient for 10 years. Well, there's nothing like hearing me and seeing me, all right? That, I could tell you I'm doing fine, but I'm pretty sure that you all will agree that actually seeing me and listening to me tells you that I'm better than fine. I am so grateful. So grateful. And to all of you, thanks, Brenda. I appreciate that. To all of you who supported me through the last 2 weeks, you need to know that when Jess and I got together for coffee, we'd sort of grab our and Jess makes a mean cup of coffee. Jess and I would sit there with our 2 cups of coffee, and we were both answering our emails and our things. Jeannie, if you're still here, thank you for all the little fun things you sent me to make me laugh. I appreciate that. Jody, I'm not even going to start with you because, you just really knew how to keep me going. For those of you who don't know, Manon in France did an awesome job of sending me cute little stupid cats and dog type stuff that we do together. We've done it all the time that I've known her. And so she did that as well. And quite honestly, the people that deserve my biggest thanks of all are probably the surgeon and nurses that looked after me, because boy, did they do a good job. And I will be very, very grateful for that all my life. So this is DearMamaSal saying, get that mammogram. It saved my life. And if I'm really lucky, it saved me from ongoing cancer. So they caught it just as it was starting. They call it apparently stage 0 because it's just literally as it's beginning. And I would not have known that if I hadn't had the mammogram. And they wouldn't have seen that those cells were lining up, getting ready to explode. A couple of them had already done it, and that's why I had the surgery. But really, how lucky was that? This is DearMamaSal saying, I love you dearly. Thank you for all the support. I definitely didn't think I would be doing this at this time of the year. But we've got a week of snow coming in. So I even got the car started, and I knew I was cleared to drive. So I took a little drive today to make sure the battery was charged up on my car. In fact, I put it on the charger last night for a couple of hours to get it filled up, and then I took it for a run to make sure it had some gas and everything in it and that it was fine. And we've got snow coming in, so but our snow looks like this, or maybe like that. It's not like snow, and like you guys get it. I will see you on Friday. I'm definitely going to do one broadcast on Friday, maybe not 2, but I will certainly do at least 1. And I may do a combination type one, but I'll see. This is DearMamaSal saying thank you all for your support and for your love and kindness. And I have to say that the one thing that I did do that was, I think, quite clever was when I went to Doug and Jess's, I knew that I would try to control things. I decided that I would take my time with them to learn the lesson of receiving. And so I made it a point of not trying to do too much to show them how well I was doing. I made it a point to receive all the love and kindness that they gave me. I made it a point of, when they asked me how I was doing, to tell them the truth. I made a point of just all the time learning to receive and not try and be the independent little so-and-so that I've been for most of my life. I became a family member, and it was really amazing. However, as I leave here, I would just remind you all that Jeannie's husband, York, had a major stroke and is probably going to be moved to hospice this week. And we need to make sure our thoughts and prayers stay with her. The ones that you've been doing for me, I'm good. Let's do it for Jeannie now. It's going to be a really difficult week for her. So this is Dear Mama Sal saying thank you all for being here. This is why we get together, is to learn how to cope with unbelievable surprises. And I don't think my surprise is nearly as big as Jeannie's was, but we will all get through this together, hopefully. This is Dear Mama Sal saying love you dearly, and we'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye for now. Thanks, Jody. I've forgotten how to turn this thing off. Hang on a second.